So, yes, I'll start again. So, every culture has its own language and customs and values and things. That's what makes a group a group. And I'm just wondering, if you look at the screen, if you can figure out what this culture is all about. Any ideas what culture that's from? Come on, somebody.
Fear of missing out. I know the bottom one.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's internet culture, isn't it? And for some of us, it's a bit odd. It's all a bit sort of foreign. But for some of the younger ones, they'll go, oh, yeah, no idea what that is. They know what that is. So this is what it means. AMA, ask me anything. POV, point of view, as in someone giving their perspective on something. H/T, hat tip, or you're giving recognition to somebody. IYKYK, if you know, you know. No, which we didn't know. And the last one is probably the one that we most know, is FOMO, fear of missing out. Now, fear of missing out, I'm told, is actually quite a fairly old-fashioned term now, that the youngsters don't even use that. You know, keep up with the times, everyone. But fear of missing out is actually something that we all struggle with, isn't it? We want to be included. We want to be part of a tribe, a family, a group, and be part of that culture and fit in, to be accepted. It's a very human desire for us. And I want to refer back to a word that God gave Clara last week. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just summarizing, it's talking about, she had a picture of someone walking a tightrope. And there was fear of falling off the tightrope, that if you didn't walk exactly right, you'd fall off. And equating that with fear of losing favor with God, losing your redemption from God, being disqualified, being left out and rejected, that fear of missing out. And the word came from the Lord. It said, but God needs you to know today you are not exempt. God is saying, my forgiveness is enough. You're on a journey with me. You are not exempt from my redemption, and you never will be. It's important for us to realize that we are safe in God's redemption. And we've sung a lot about that today. The strength of his love, the power of his blood. That we're not walking a tightrope, that we make one step wrong and whoop, that's it. We're in the rubbish heap. But as New Life, I think we've been through a really difficult season. I don't know about you. We've had some real difficult times, some painful times. We've lost a lot of loved ones recently, haven't we? Yeah. Amongst us. And that affects us. It affects us individually and also corporately. We're dealing with grief in different ways. We have questions. Maybe we have some anger in there. Definitely some disappointment that we have to deal with. And these are not nice emotions, but they're very human. They're part of life. So I want to focus on someone in the Bible who is Thomas. We know him very well. And he's sadly been named Doubting Thomas. And I think that poor guy gets a really bad rap, the poor guy. We're going to read the story in a minute. But I would like to think of him as like struggling Thomas. Grieving Thomas. He's grieving. Afraid Thomas. Certainly overwhelmed Thomas. If you think what these disciples have been through, from the death, all of that trauma, and their hopes were all pinned on Jesus, and suddenly he's gone. And then 3 days later, you know, he's alive, and they're supposed to just go, oh, right, okay, and carry on as normal. It's like, we can do that. We've got 2,000 years of perspective to be able to look, and we know the end of the story. So we're going, oh yes, the sadness and the suffering, that's terrible, and we identify with it every year, and it's really good that we do. And so we go through the Good Friday, the reflection of the waiting of the Saturday. And then the Sunday, we're like, yay, he's risen, hallelujah, and we're all happy, clappy. But we forget, they lived that moment by moment. And it must have been really hard to turn on a dime suddenly from grieving to celebration, even though Jesus did warn them several times. They weren't able to cope with it. And I think I have a lot more compassion for these disciples than I used to when I see how much they struggled. So let's have a look at this story, Thomas, in John 20. Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. This was the resurrection day. Thomas wasn't with them when Jesus turned up in the room. So the other disciples told him, "We've seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them this time. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Here, put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you've believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Thomas wasn't the only one that struggled, you know. If you read the four Gospels, they're slightly different accounts, but they all sort of marry together somewhat. It's the different aspects of the stories. He definitely wasn't the only one that doubted. It said in Matthew 28, the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. He actually appeared many times to help them believe. He realized that it was going to take them time to switch emotions, if anything else, to process the enormity of everything that had gone on, to get over their grief and trauma and disappointment and enter into the full joy of the resurrection. So I'm going to tell you a bit summary of what happened before that scene with Thomas. So the day of the resurrection, it says early in the morning, the ladies went. It says Mary Magdalene. Mark says Mary Magdalene was the first to see Jesus. She was told to go and tell the disciples, but they didn't believe her. Then there's a group of women that see angels. It's mentioned in several of the Gospels, and the angel said, "He's risen." And amazingly, they kind of are able to receive that, and they were told to go and tell the disciples. So they did. On the way to telling the disciples, they meet Jesus. He turns up. Now there's a whole other sermon in there about obedience and faith, that as you're on the way, you have a greater encounter and revelation of Jesus along the way. So they saw Jesus and they believed. They rushed to the disciples and they said, "Jesus is alive, we've seen him." They didn't believe them. Now, I don't want to believe it's a man-woman thing. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and just say they were struggling. Okay? But the women tend to sort of, I don't know why, maybe it's our makeup, but they seem to have an easier time to accept this new reality. Anyway, the men are struggling. They think it's nonsense. They doubted. They were confused. In their fear and their grief, they were certainly overwhelmed. It's like, what the heck is going on? Which way's up? Have you ever felt like that? When you're not even sure which emotion to have, so much is hitting you all at once. that you're overwhelmed. It's like, I cannot take another thing. 2 disciples were on their way leaving Jerusalem, and they were on their way to Emmaus, where they met Jesus. And it wasn't just a quick, boom, oh, I'm alive, there you go, and he disappeared. He spent hours with them on the road. He didn't even tell them, let them know who he was at first. He was very patient. He allowed them to talk, to process, to get off their chest all their frustration, all their confusion, all their sadness. He listened, and he walked with them on that journey. And then eventually he started to explain to them and say, well, look, the scriptures say this and that. And they said their hearts were warmed. So much so that they invited him to come stay with them and eat. It's like, oh, don't go. We want more of this. And eventually he revealed who he was. He took time with them. He recognized they needed time to process everything in order to receive the joy and the truth of the resurrection. And then when they finally got it, they got up and they ran all the way back to Jerusalem, a long way, to the disciples. They ran and told the disciples. And guess what? Didn't believe them. They're still struggling. See, it's not just Thomas. They're still struggling, getting more and more confused by each record that comes. And then, this is still on the day of the resurrection. Then, Jesus appears to the 10. And that's the moment when they suddenly realize, oh my goodness, it's true. That's the moment where Jesus comes and he breathes the Holy Spirit on them. And he gives this amazing commission. Go. As the Father sent me, I now send you. Go with the good news of the gospel. Amazing. Wow. What a meeting. And what a meeting you don't want to miss. That's the meeting that Thomas missed. Do you imagine how he felt? Oh, darn it. Oh, maybe his alarm didn't go off. I don't know. No, just, maybe he had responsibilities and he couldn't leave. Don't know. Maybe he was so struggling that I just think, oh, I can't face it today. I'm just going to stay in bed, We have those days sometimes where it's too much, it's overwhelming. But Thomas, how must he have felt when he heard afterwards from the disciples, oh, we met Jesus, it was amazing, and he said this, and he sent us out, and how do you think he felt that he'd fallen off the tightrope? Oh my goodness, I've missed it. Like the meeting, the one meeting of all time that you don't want to miss. And he wasn't there. He must have felt so disappointed and dejected, left out. It says that in John 20, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. Jesus stayed around for 40 days. He turned up all over the place. He worked really hard to make sure his followers understood what really happened. He recognized that they needed time to switch their brain, to take it all in, to not be overwhelmed by it. Because he wanted to make sure that the message was true and pure, that the one that they were being commissioned to carry, they had to make sure that they'd actually truly understood it. So he spent 40 days. He appeared to over 500 people, it says in the Gospels. And the second part says, but these things, these stories, these accounts are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. That part's referring to us. Those stories were given to us so we would believe, so we would recognize that Jesus truly is alive, to help us in our unbelief. Thomas wasn't in the room. He thought he'd blown it. And maybe that's why he said, at least I see, unless I touch his wounds, I won't believe. Maybe he was trying to protect himself from any more pain. I don't know. He must have felt very disqualified and missed out. Have you ever felt like that, like PE, how many times when was I not chosen for the team? Oh, it's a very human thing, normal thing to not be chosen, to be that like, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, okay. I had one time, some years ago, my family traveled to Scotland. We drove from Slovakia to Scotland. It's quite a trip, but we did it in our big van with the kids. For 3 weeks, there was a leadership training program that we were going to go to. And I was super excited. At the time, no one knew, but at the time, I was really struggling. And I was thinking, I'm not sure I want to do this missionary thing anymore. I'm feeling like a bit, I'm not doing anything. I'm just with the kids. Well, kids are fine. But I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling like I was doing any good. And I was really, really struggling and thinking, I'll just pack it in. But I was looking forward to this time in Scotland because we'd get some really good input, and I was hoping for some inspiration. We got there to Scotland, and they said, I'm sorry, you can't be a part of the school, to me. Your husband can, but you can't. Because by Scottish law, your kids can't be left on their own to do their homeschool work. I was thinking I'd just give them the work and then I could hop into the lecture room and get all the good stuff. No. So for 3 weeks, I stayed with the kids, and on the other side of the wall, my husband and all these people got this wonderful teaching, and it was amazing. And I'd hear all the reports of like, oh, that was really good session, like, great. I was not happy. I was not a happy bunny. I grumbled. I was angry at God. I said, why the heck have we come all this way? What's the point? You know how I'm struggling right now. And again, I'm left out. I'm not able to, because of this and that. And God was very kind. He let me moan for a bit. And then he sat me down and he just said, you know what? This is not a surprise to me. But it's not a barrier to me. It's like, I don't need to talk to you in a lecture room. I can use anything. Just you watch. I've got my own training program for you planned. And those 3 weeks, by the end of it, I was a changed person. It's one of the most significant 3 weeks I've had of my life so far. I went from feeling so disappointed and dejected and pretty rubbish to being like, I felt like I'd been through like a full spring clean or something. I was like, oh, ready to go. Yay. Because God met me in so many different ways. I walk on the beach and I'd see a pebble on the beach and he'd suddenly say something to me. Or I was reading a children's book to my kids, and then suddenly it would be like God speaking to me. Or we'd have a wonderful time of worship, or someone would pray for me, just odd things. It was amazing. It was like God entered my world. I was not excluded from what God had for me. Yes, maybe I couldn't be in the classroom at that time. Practically, I couldn't be there. But that doesn't stop God. He came and he blessed me incredibly. So I know what it felt like to be left out. And yet God said, I include you. You are not left out. You are not exempt. And he met me in my life. And for all of us, there are many barriers that we have that can keep us away. Some of them are physical and practical. And some of them are internal, the things that we're struggling with internally. We actually have no idea what people are going through. Even right now, the people that you're sitting next to in this room, we don't know the battles that they're going through. And actually, even just to be here today, for some people, it's a real struggle to walk through the door, to turn up. And so I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the people sitting next to you, and you could just turn to them and look in their eyes, and as you mean it, just say, I'm so glad you're here. Yeah. Yeah. We've all got stuff that we're dealing with. We're all going through things, but no one is excluded in the kingdom. We're not disqualified. And for those online, you didn't make it here or you're watching this later, we're so glad you're watching. You are included as well. Jesus, in John 20, said this to Thomas. Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen me, yet have believed. And when I read that recently, it made me think of, when you watch a film or a program and the actors are talking to each other, and then suddenly one of the actors turns and talks to the screen, directly to you. Isn't that really weird when that happens? It's like, whoa, you somehow included me in this story. Well, I imagine that's what Jesus is doing. He's looking at Thomas and saying, yeah, you're blessed because you've seen me and you've been able to believe. And then he turns to us. Us. Looks all the way through history from that point and he says, and you're included too. Blessed are you who haven't been able to see. We missed out on that. And yet we believe. And we're blessed. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Jesus includes us. Jesus said he didn't want to lose any of his disciples. He actually says it 3 times in John. I have not lost any of the ones that the Father has given me, except Judas. It was important to him not lose anyone, even Thomas. He could have just said, I got 10 of them. That's good enough. 10's fine. Thomas, well, no. Jesus was determined to include Thomas, even though he'd missed the meeting of a lifetime. Because Jesus is the good shepherd. He protects his sheep. He's the one that makes sure the 99 is safe and goes after the one that got lost on the way. He's good because he's capable. He knows what he's doing. He's skilled and he's a confident shepherd. We can trust him. And he's good because he's loving. He's caring. He's committed. He has no hidden agendas, no selfish thoughts. He's a good shepherd. And we often, we talk about the Christian life as a journey. And we often realize that we're in a valley. And sometimes that valley can be the valley of grief. Now, we don't have time to go through this right now, but it's something that perhaps a chart that some of you have seen. It's a way of sort of explaining the journey of grief that we go through. And maybe some of us are going through now. Maybe from losing someone that you love, but you can also lose things like lose confidence, lose vision, lose finances, lose your job. All sorts of things can cause us the loss creates grief in us. And so, we can be going along, life is wonderful, and suddenly, boom, a bomb's gone off. And we end up, we're in this pit. And we're like, what happened? And all these emotions start coming up. Go back a bit. Sorry. There we go. You start with shock and numbness and denial. It's like, no. We just cannot accept something's happened. That's normal. It's part of it. Yeah? But that doesn't stay like that. Eventually, it comes the anger and the fear of like, I can't believe this happened. Or oh my goodness, did I cause that? If I could have done something differently, that's where the bargaining. What if? And that's heartbreaking. That's heart-wrenching to go through. But you're trying to understand what's going on, to come to terms with it. And things that your life seems to be disintegrating. And it's actually called the angle of disintegration. It's falling apart. You are literally falling apart, and it feels horrendous. You feel like you're dying. And there's panic in that. No one likes to feel like they're falling apart. But this is normal part of the journey with grief. It's hard, but it's a journey. And the important part of the journey is that you don't camp there. You don't live there. You walk through it. It's tough, but Jesus has promised to walk with us through it. Yeah? And eventually hitting the bottom, there's a lot of loneliness and isolation. That's why I say, if you've managed to walk through the door this morning or tuned in online, that's great that you've reached out, because you have a tendency, you feel like you want to isolate. You don't feel like, I'm not good company. No one wants to be around me. And actually, we need the body at times like this. And that can be a really dark pit that you're in, and you feel like you're going to live there forever, but you don't. And eventually, light dawns a little bit at a time, and things begin to get a tiny bit easier, and eventually, you find a new way of living, having come to terms with the loss and the grief. You realize, I'm alive. I can do this. Now, that's a nice, neat little curve there, but actually, if you go to next slide, the journey is much more chaotic than that explanation. You bounce all over the place, and that's normal. I just want to say that's normal. You actually feel like, okay, light 1 minute, and then down in the depths the next. It's a normal part of the journey to bounce around. The grief journey can be confusing, and it's messy. No one really likes it, but it's part of it. And in God's grace, it comes in waves. We don't have it all the time. But there are certain times where it will hit you, maybe when you least expect it. And you just got to accept, like, okay, it's going to be one of those days. Tomorrow could be different. And the other thing I just want to say is that each grief journey that people take is unique. Everyone grieves differently. Some people, it's floods of tears. Other people, you're wondering why they can't cry. Or whatever. It's different for everybody. And the length of time is different for everybody. But we do travel through this together. Jesus doesn't shy away from emotions. Emotions are real and important. They actually indicate that we're alive. And if we have emotions, it means it was important to us. Jesus walks with us through those dark valleys. He confronted Peter's betrayal. He helped Thomas with his doubts. And he helped the disciples with their confusion as well. And interestingly, how in many of the accounts, he chose to eat with the disciples as part of this process of helping them come to terms with the resurrection. He ate with them. Something very personal, something very intimate, a relaxed setting. He didn't do a lot of big displays of power at this point because his presence was the only miracle they needed at that point. The power of just being with him, which is what they needed. On the road to Emmaus, Thomas or the disciples in the room, fishing with Jesus and breakfast, if you remember that one. Think back, before the crucifixion, Jesus had a last meal with his disciples, and he said, when you do this, remember me. When you eat, when you are together, fellowshipping, remember me. And he brings back that symbol again and again after his resurrection. He says, remember? Remember I'm with you. How wonderful is that? And David, in Psalm 23, he mentions also eating. When I walk through the dark valley, it says this, you prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. In that valley, there is danger. We face the enemy, whatever form that is. It's dark. We're confused. We feel very alone. We feel weak. We feel very vulnerable, utterly bereft, and very needy. And it's in that place that Jesus says, I'm with you. Here, feast on my presence. Let me minister to you. Let me give you what you need. Let's have communion. Let's have fellowship. Let me take care of you. Grieving is a valley that we all walk through. But our destination is to live in the house of the Lord. Our emotions, particularly through grief, as difficult as they are, they're uncomfortable and scary, but they won't kill us. Avoiding these emotions just might. We need to allow ourselves times and spaces to feel these emotions, recognizing it's a season, It's a valley we go through and we'll come out the other side at some point. Jesus promises that. The Christian life is not a tightrope walk. It is being lovingly and confidently led by the Good Shepherd himself. And I'm just going to, at the end, I'm going to read Psalm 23. And I'd just like you to close your eyes and to use your imagination. Imagine the Good Shepherd leading you, and you're one of his sheep. And however you are today, wherever you find yourself, whatever emotions you're feeling, allow him to come and minister to you as I read it. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen.
So at the end of the service, there'll be a prayer team here. If anybody feels like they would like some prayer to help them, or if you would like someone to talk to, there's Louise and her team as the elders. Yeah. Whatever you're going through, we're here for you as a community, and Jesus is here for you too.
Thank you.